Yeah, you can. Good evening and welcome to another episode of Gupshup with Gayatri, Season 2, Old World Conversations with New Age Technology. As many of you know, Gupshup is a series of light and casual conversations on topical issues with domain experts. But light does not make it frivolous. Casual is not the same as flippant. Gupshup is not gossip. Gupshup is, in fact, an intimate chat in the company of family and friends in the age of social distancing. Gupshup is not designed as a high voltage, toxic debate aimed at getting you angry and agitated. Rather, it's more of a meaningful conversation meant to cause you to reflect, ponder, comment, learn, unlearn, because there are so many issues around us, but we don't really get to chat about what matters these days. Does that mean that no uncomfortable questions will be asked? They will, but not in the nation wants to know, Bharat puchta hai kind of way. Gupshup is broad in its scope. Previous episodes have covered topics as diverse as Pride Month, LGBTQ rights, financial planning, feng shui, food, beauty, education. But what makes Gupshup truly unique is the quality of the audience and the interactive nature of the interview. The predominantly female audience of Gupshup is well educated, articulate, and discerning. They are the opinion makers and decision makers of today and always have lots to say. So send us your queries and comments in the chat box and keep yourselves on mute so as to avoid any technical glitches. Once again, welcome to Gupshup with Gayatri, Old World Conversations with New Age Technology. Let's turn to our guest for today. But just host, can you spotlight the video, please? Maybe on Priya now, our guest.
I better get ready.
Host, yeah, pin, yeah, yeah. Can you please pin the video on Priya? Yeah. Our guest today is someone I admire deeply. She's bold and fearless. She has a mind of her own, and she's not afraid to speak it. She's intelligent and articulate, eloquent and witty. She's the topper of St. Xavier's College, Mumbai, and the proud founder CEO of the Pomegranate Workshop, an arts education organization based in Mumbai. Priya Srinivasan, such a pleasure to have you on Gupshup with Gayatri.
Gayatri, you had me looking around to see who you were introducing with all those words. Thank you. It's a pleasure.
So, Priya, first things first. What is an arts education organization? What does an arts education organization do?
Okay. So, what I can tell you what we do, which is basically we look at visual arts, language arts, performing arts, and film. We look at all of these art forms because we believe they are integrated. We look at not just skill building, which is very much part of it, but very importantly, creative expression, a safe space, a space where no idea is right or wrong, and a space to understand the interdisciplinary nature of the arts. So you can't do theater without creative writing. You can't do creative writing without some amount of visual art. You cannot have visual art without film and vice versa. These are the connections that we often lose out on, in especially in the process of education, because we tend to look at these as verticals. Then we pick them up and we say, let's do creative writing. And then there's 1 hour of writing or whatever. But the idea here is to have a transdisciplinary approach so that students have, uh, let's just say, an integrated idea of the arts. They may not want to be artists or filmmakers, or any of this for that matter. We have ones, I mean, we have students who are math majors right now in college and they've made films. So I just think it makes them a better math major, because just having a grounding in the arts just sort of sets you up better for life.
So, do you also have a background in the arts? Are you also an artist?
Well, curiously, no. So
So
I
you're
didn't.
actually doing this, which is even more commendable.
Well, so I didn't begin with this. My background was in economics and political science. I went into business journalism right after that, and I was there for about 13 years. And then I began the Pomegranate Workshop with a lot of incredible support from artists, practitioners in the arts, writers, filmmakers. Honestly, it was done with a lot of their support, some of whom continue to support us to this day, and some of whom are with us this evening as well. Um, so it's really, I've learned tremendously from all of them. And I think that what I took on was the whole, sort of endeavor of putting together the whole thing by way of getting the students in, getting schools to understand what this was all about and why it filled so many gaps in the education that they were striving to give their students. And then I had this incredible support of a network of facilitators who are experts in their spheres.
So, how did this idea come to you? You found some lacunae somewhere.
So I think that I was a full time journalist with broadcast and then print media. So it was really not just a 9 to 5 job. It was insane media hours and things like that. So there was really no reason for me to start thinking along these lines. But what I did notice is that when my daughter turned around 5 or 6, she would go to these classes, for art or theater or whatever. And then she would come back with these perfect paintings, with a vase and a lace curtain and whatever, sunflowers and what have you. And I would be like, why is a 5-year-old painting like this? I mean, what resonance does this have for a 5-year-old? And, so every time I try to ask her, but, and I didn't want to push it by asking, but why this picture? So I'd be like, why this? And she would be like, teacher said. And then one day she came home with what was clearly an Aboriginal painting. I mean, it was a snake wound together with lots of motifs in it. And it was clearly, a copy of an Aboriginal work. And I just said, oh, that's a snake. Have you seen one? And she said, no. So I said, so what made you, make a snake? So she said, teacher gave us the picture. I think that was it. I mean, that was the day. It was like really, for me, it was a turning point to just say that, no, what is happening here? I may not have a background in the arts or whatever it is, but surely there's more than this that a 5-year-old can be doing in an art class. Surely I need to see a sense of play. I need to see a sense of mess, a sense of color, something, I mean, you can't bring me back these picture perfect renditions every Sunday. And the art teacher, honestly, she was a wonderful person. And my daughter loved going to her class and spent 3 hours sitting with her. And at the end of 3 hours, I would have this frame worthy picture. And I just said, no, this is not working. This is not working for some reason.
So,
And,
the
anyways, that,
frame-worthy picture, that's what you didn't like, that your
yeah,
5-year-old, 6-year-old was coming home with a
yeah,
frame-worthy picture. I mean, some people would,
yeah.
for use of a better expression, kill for that.
It sort of really, I mean, made me question the whole process, to say that why should a 5-year-old be painting like this at all? I didn't see the process at work. Basically, I just didn't see what was happening behind that painting. I couldn't get a sense of it at all. And when I asked her, the answer, she was pretty straight. She said, teacher gave it to me, that's it. And she loved her teacher, so there was no way I was going to sort of wedge into that relationship and whatever. So I was like, all right, I mean, if this is what it is. But it got me started, it got me thinking. So I would just gather up some of the kids in the building, after their playtime and everything, and they would be just chilling at home, here, and I would just be like, let's tell some stories, let's, play some music, let's see how this works with them. And I found that, I liked sort of interacting with the kids and doing this kind of thing. And then I said, all right, wait a minute, this has really got to sort of take root in a more formal way, because it came out of sheer necessity, really. I mean, there was nothing available. What
So
was
you
one to
wanted
do?
to focus on the process
The
and not
process.
so much on the product.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, because you say that if you focus enough on the process, the final outcome will be very good.
It will, well, what surfaces will be authentic? Whether good or not is a subjective opinion. I may like a work of art, you may not like the same work of art. So, really, who is to judge? But what surfaces will be authentic?
Creative, original.
Original, yeah.
And how did you think of this name, pomegranate, the pomegranate workshop? Is that your favorite fruit?
I actually not particularly. I love it. I like the pomegranate, but I was looking for something sensory, something that sort of engaged the senses, because this was going to be a process of the arts which really engages the senses. I thought a fruit really comes closest to engaging all senses. And we were just trying different fruit names, and every time I said pomegranate, there would be like, oh, the pomegranate is this. Oh, and visually it can mean this. And oh, if you open it up, it looks like so many pink crystals have spilled out. That's what one kid said to me. So I just said that, well, this fruit has a resonance, and then I learned that it has huge relevance in West Asian mythology. It's Then someone told me that, that pomegranate juice is fantastic for stomach ailments. So I said,
Yes.
goodness, yeah. And the rind of the pomegranate is used for vegetable dyes. So I just said, this is one fruit that is just replete with possibilities.
Wow. Okay. So when you started off, that was 2006 when you started off with the pomegranate journey.
Yeah.
And in 2013, just in 7 years, the Cherie Blair Foundation for Women Entrepreneurs identified you as a successful case study in India for India. How did that come about?
So I actually became a mentee of the Cherie Blair Foundation for Women Entrepreneurs. So they have a really interesting system where they have mentors from all over the world, and they've got mentees from all over the world except the UK and the US. And they're all women entrepreneurs, basically. And so you get paired up with a mentor who could be anywhere. And it's a fantastic exchange, actually, because you meet your mentor every 15 days, and this person could be on another continent altogether. Like my mentor is German, and she lives in Bonn. And it was quite fantastic the way we despite what could have been culturally so different, how is she supposed to understand an arts education organization in Bombay? I mean, and for me, it's like, how do I explain this whole scenario to her, where parents are looking at works and saying that ye kya hai? Or they're sort of asking me over the phone, say, acha ye sab karte ho aap workshop mein, isse kya milta hai? you know so this How do I explain this phenomenon to her? But it actually worked out brilliantly, because we would only talk about the business, and then it was fabulous because we were on the same page. So this went on for a few years, and in the meanwhile, I mean, the Cherie Blair Foundation would, of course, keep tabs on, how it's progressing. They speak to the mentees, they speak to the mentors, they get feedback from both sides, etc. So at one point, I just got an email just saying that, hey, you know what, we're making a film on the Pomegranate Workshop because we want to feature, this company at this development entrepreneurs conference in New York, and we're going to be featuring the Pomegranate Workshop in it. And so they just came and they made a film and they featured it at the conference. But what followed that was Cherie Blair then made a visit to our office. I mean, she came down personally. She spent time with all of us, and she spent time with the cast of our then production Antigone, which was quite incredible because all these young adults got to really be. She asked them some very interesting questions, and so that was the journey with the Cherie Blair Foundation. Yeah.
So you're still with them? Are you still have?
Actually, no, that program ended, but I'm very much in touch with my mentor. She's become a friend for life.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And what were those interesting questions that Cherie Blair? I mean, what was she interested in knowing from your students?
Oh, it was incredible because what happened is we were staging this production called Antigone at that. I mean, it's an adaptation of the classical Greek tragedy Antigone, which was written in 500 BC. And we are staging it in 2014. That's when Cherie Blair visited our office. And we had a performance slated for that evening. And I called the cast in the afternoon because Cherie Blair was going to be visiting in the afternoon. And, she yeah, some interesting questions coming up. Was it
Yeah.
difficult to explain to parents? I'll come to that. It was actually incredibly difficult. It was this cast was, all present. And, I didn't realize this, but Cherie Blair at that point said that her parents were theater people. She grew
Oh,
up around theater. So she knew a lot about theater, and of course, she knew the text inside out. And being a lawyer by profession,
yeah.
she jumped right into it and she just started asking the kids, that how did you adapt this text? What do you think Crayon should have been doing? What do you think about Crayon's stand? What do you think about Antigone's stand? And this was one of the proudest moments for me because these kids answered like, because they had adapted it, they knew exactly why they had written the play the way they had. So they could explain it from Crayon's point of view, they could explain it from Antigone's point, they could explain state versus individual versus rebellion versus quelling rebellion. It was incredible. And I think that's when she also completely understood that these kids are not just actors. They have gotten under the skin of that text.
That was huge, huge validation for
Huge, because I
you.
didn't expect her to jump into something so, so to speak, technical. But being a theater person and a lawyer, that was a combination none of us were really prepared for. I mean, lawyer, everyone knows, but who knew about the theater background? I mean, she's grown up in theaters apparently. So she comes in and she was just conversing with them, and the way they were answering was something as I wasn't surprised at their answers because I knew the process would have taken root, but seeing it there with that delegation that she came in with and watching them hold their own was one really rewarding experience.
And these were the same students who've made films that have been screened. Films made by the students of Pomegranate have been screened at about 15
Yeah.
different film festivals
Yes,
and
absolutely.
also won awards. So let me tell the audience that they've bagged awards as from for Best Film, Special Jury Awards,
Absolutely.
from film festivals in LA to Norway to South Asia. Is there any common thread you see among the students of the film made by the students of Pomegranate?
Gayatri, I'll tell you something really interesting. So one year when this was, what was it? Probably 2016. Yeah, we had two boys come in for our filmmaking course that year. Both of them were 16. And one of them from an international school, and one of them from a BMC school in Colaba. So we had put together a little funding, and we managed to bring in students from some of the municipal schools as well. And so these two students were our key students for film mentorship that year. Um, for both of them completed their films, both of them made wonderful films. These films went to festivals, etc. um, and here's what, so the kid from the international school who came in, he got into his dream college on the whatever they call it, early decision thing or
Yeah.
whatever, right? So he got into his absolute tier one dream university. And the boy from the Colaba Municipal School, actually, he went on to finish his 11th and 12th at a junior college and continued to work with us. I mean, he would keep interning with us, doing, little editing jobs, etc. And eventually, after the 12th, he submitted his film for the Whistling Woods Scholarship. And he got the scholarship that year for Whistling Woods for the editing program. And as we speak, he's graduating in editing from Whistling Woods.
Wow.
Yeah. So when you ask me the common thread, I mean that these were kids from two completely diverse backgrounds. They worked beautifully together, by the way, helping, sharing, and just technically, one of them had not been exposed to as much technology as the other one, but how, without making a fuss about it, they would just sit together, and I would see them just heads together and quickly, tapping and whatever, and they would give feedback to one another. And so beautifully, this the kid from the international school, how well he supported his peer. To me, this is education. This is
Absolutely.
learning, and this is education, really. So
And that's so
Maybe,
heartening to know that, people from different classes also through this medium, through the workshops, are able to collaborate successfully. I
yes,
mean, I think it's really the young which will, show the day.
yeah.
I think the generation is just fabulous. They probably don't have the kind of maybe prejudices as us, but anyway, that's another thing I'm not getting into.
No, no, you're right about that because honestly, they did it without any fuss, just no fuss,
No.
just
So
sitting
you
next to one
mentioned about
another.
the kid from the BMC school. So have you ever thought of, so Pomegranate it's not a non-profit. Your
It's a company, but we work a lot with the social sector.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that might have, I mean, so if it was a fully registered NGO, there would be different challenges, and this is a corporate entity.
Yeah, I wouldn't know. I mean, we've not been an NGO, so I wouldn't know about that. But we are a company basically. But we do a lot of work with the social sector. Yes.
You do it because I know you do a lot of work with the social sector, but you're a company, so basically you're also trying to make and you're bringing about some change, but not through the non-profit route. You're
No,
trying to
it's
make it
not.
a sustainable
Yeah,
business practice,
yeah,
which can bring about some positive change in society.
that's right.
That's tremendous. That's quite an effort. That's why I call you fearless. Anyway, you've also been a member of the selection panel for the International Film Festival of India,
Yeah,
which is the biggest film festival, children's film festival in the world.
yeah.
So, how does that selection process work? And any interesting tales from there?
Lots of interesting tales. It's a fascinating thing. Actually, every year when I take it up, I'm thinking we have to watch films for hours and hours and hours. And I'm just thinking, oh gosh, in the morning before I have to leave for that, I'm just like, okay, that's another whole day gone. But by evening, when I'm coming out of that films division office, I'm just thinking that, I want to do this every day. Because you're watching films for hours and you're discussing those films with a panel of people who've come in from different walks of life. I mean, each of them, they could be filmmakers, they may be film educators, they might be people working with children, whatever the case might be, but coming in from different walks of life and there for a reason. Very interesting stories there because some of the films that you think are must sees for kids anywhere. It just turns out that there are such cultural differences, little things which you have to reject an entire film for. Like there was this fabulous European film, I forget which country it came from, and it was a beautiful film, right? Um, just for one scene where so there's this mother in the bathtub and there's a teenage kid who comes in to talk to her and he comes in and he's standing at the door and she gets up from the bathtub. So
Wow.
yeah, now we felt it was a bit much for you know Indian audiences. I
Indian
mean,
audience.
it was only a split second thing, and not split second. Obviously, it was whatever, a scene that lasted a minute or something. But we were given to understand that in that context, it's not such a big deal. But then we had to reject the whole film, and naturally we had to reject the whole film for that. Another case was another very beautiful film. It was a cross continental collaboration, an animation film, gorgeous one with different people around the world. Animators had worked on it, and the director was I think again he I forget where, probably West Asia somewhere, and beautiful film. Now, what happens is that there was one breastfeeding scene, and well, it was the story of two princes, and it was the thing of they're separated at not separated at birth, whatever. One
They're
kid
two wet
is
nurse.
yeah, one kid is not the biological kid of that mother, and the other one is, and whatever, he's reared in the palace, and it was one of those stories. But that whole thing of the mother nursing both the children was very germane to the story. It was very important to the story because she treated them like brothers, though they weren't blood brothers or whatever, right? And to establish that, there was one breastfeeding scene, and hardly a few minutes, or not a few minutes, I mean, whatever, 30, 40 seconds, but it was heartbreaking to reject. I mean, I was okay with it. I was on the panel. I just said, I'm absolutely fine with this. And I think kids in India, everywhere, there are siblings. They may be seeing siblings being breastfed. What is the big deal? But the rest of the panel rejected it. And so this film, this gorgeous, gorgeous film, didn't make it to the festivals. So there have been moments where, and we've had, arguments and, whatever. It's an incredible process, because it really goes to the core of, what you believe is a good film, and, what you think is.
I can imagine. Yeah, when you mentioned the scene about the bathtub, I remember once we were on a holiday in Bali, and we were on the lounge chair, and on the next lounge chair there was a mother and a son sitting, and the mother was topless, and she was sunbathing,
Yeah,
and her boy must have been about 12, 13, and he was completely fine with it.
exactly.
And as an Indian, I thought, wow, this is really cool, and maybe, one can aspire to, be so
Exactly.
cool.
It's,
But
it's just a cultural thing, yeah.
yeah,
Cultural
it is a
difference,
huge
that's all. But
cultural thing.
then, when lakhs of children are going to come and watch it from schools all over Andhra Pradesh, which is where the film festival is held in Telangana, then you're thinking, wait a minute, how is this going to go down? And rightly so. I mean, it's not going to, I mean, the whole film will become about this, and that's not the point of
And
it.
children are defined by anyone under, so these films are by people under the age of 18 or under
No,
the
these
age
are
of
not the under 18 films. These are films by filmmakers, adult filmmakers from around the world.
Okay,
These are
these are
not
not
by
the
the
films.
under
But then you were
18s.
mentioning about young adults, the
Yeah,
13 to
that's
18.
a different category.
That's
This selection panel that I was part of for, 3 consecutive years, this was for the main category of directors sending their films, for which the government pays good money, to procure the rights to actually. So if you're rejecting the film, they won't buy the film. So it's as important as that. I mean, if you've accepted the film, Ministry of Information Broadcasting is going to shell out a lot of money to buy it. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, so you really lots of films every day and lots of notes taking, and in
Yeah.
many cases, will the film be screened? I mean, all those are very important decisions. You were also mentioning about new neighbors, old fight.
Oh yes, so this is a different category of film. So
That's
I must establish here that, so in children's films festivals, it's not that only children or young adults are making films for children. There are adult filmmakers who are making exemplary, fabulous films for kids. They're making children's films. So a bulk of the film festivals has films entered by adult filmmakers, right? But you have categories within these film festivals which are for young adults, where the average age of entry is about 18 years. And this is the category in which many of our films are submitted in all of these festivals around the world. And that is the category in which they've been winning their, special jury mentions, etc. These have to be viewed as two very separate categories. Now, in this category, which is the young adult category, I have just seen the most incredible films. I mean, things that we wouldn't even think make for the subject of a film. You have, 15, 16, 14-year olds, all over the world just picking up now mobile phones, then DSLR cameras, borrowing it maybe, zero budgets, who's going to pay them to make their summer film or whatever. So it'll be a miracle if they're not paying someone to make it, so it's like, they set out with this camera, that's all they have, it's all ambience, it's all sound recorded on location. They're not doing separate dubbing or anything, it's all natural light. They're basically spending zero, right? The stories are to be seen, to be believed. I mean, they are incredible. They're coming of age stories. There was this one that you're mentioning, was a Peruvian film called Old Old Neighbors, New Fights. I'm sorry, New Neighbors,
new
Old
neighbors,
Fights.
old fight.
New Neighbors, Old Fights. Yeah, New Neighbors, Old Fights. And this kid, I think that this filmmaker was about 18 years, has simply put a camera, in between, like you have, it's a sort of a wadi setup, I mean, if we, many people in the audience would be familiar with the vada or wadi setup of, houses in Bombay, which is you enter it and there are several houses around and then there's a central courtyard, right? And there are several houses around. They could be just one room, two rooms, one room, two rooms. They have common toilets, and it's a row of rooms across. So it was a similar setup. And this kid has actually placed the camera in between two houses, the doors of two houses, and just captured the fights of the neighbors and made a complete story out of it. It was incredible. It won the top prize in that festival. Beautifully done, and in the end, very very poignant to say that there is a new neighbor, and the fight is still the old fight, it's just so poignant and self-reflective, and it just said so much about who but a 17, 18-year-old is going to see a film in that. That's my thing. I was so blown by some of these incredible themes, incredible subject matter.
Well, thank you. We'll take an audience question now.
Sure.
There's one Shri Mathur saying, was it difficult to explain your work and what it brings forth in the child to the parents? As some parents really do want that perfection at the cost of authenticity.
Yes, yes, they absolutely do. Because they believe that the child has learned if the child has produced, right? You don't have to produce to learn. I mean, you could be part of a process, something could be emerging from it, but you don't have to produce a product to prove that you've learned something. This was our biggest battle all the time, explaining to parents, telling them, saying, watch over a period of time, ask your child if they enjoy the class, would they like to come back? And our real heroes and heroines have been the children, because they come in, they love the class, they go back, and they're like, don't have anything else at this time. I have my pomegranate class. We've had parents then calling us up and saying that, it's become such a problem because on Saturdays we can't go out at all because our child refuses to bunk your class. There are parents in schools who've said that if we have a Wednesday class with those kids, they say that even if the kid is sick on a Wednesday, they want to go to school because they're like, I'll bunk Thursday if you want, but not Wednesday because we have a pomegranate class. And I said, these are the champions, because they know what is happening. You know, they get it. They get how this is changing them.
So, what kind of work are you doing with the schools? What is with the different boards?
Yeah, so we run all our programs in the schools. We run a reading program called the Magic Reading Room. Then we've got a creative writing program called What's Your Story? Then we have Pomegranate Theatre. Then we have a film program. These are year-long programs, so they run right through the academic year, and we structure them for each grade level. So the Magic Reading Room will run right from grade 1 to grade 5. So the kids are with us right through junior school. So when
So
they're in
you
grade
train their
6,
teachers for you train you send your teachers
yeah,
to
we do it
do that,
ourselves.
you
We, yeah.
train there the teachers of the school.
Well, we do have a teacher training component should the school opt for that, but otherwise, we are delivering the program end to end in the schools. It's not, I mean, if the teachers don't deliver it, we do. Our team does.
And right now you're only operating out of Mumbai.
No, right now, what has happened is because of this whole pandemic
Pandemic.
thing and the online thing and whatnot, I mean, suddenly, we see signups from Coimbatore, signups from Hyderabad, and it's been incredible because a few weeks ago I was in a classroom, and I was just saying that I knew one kid was from Pune in that classroom. So I said, hey, hello, let's say hello to so and so. He's joined us all the way from Pune. And other kids' hands go up. I'm in Pune too. I'm in Pune too. Turns out I'm the only one in Bombay. I said, okay, wait a minute, and then I realized that, wow, okay. No, we've been getting kids from all over now. Now, I mean, because of all of this.
Excellent. Yeah. So maybe you should also think about, these classes for schools which are not in Mumbai.
Yes,
Like your students
that's
are
the next step. That's
that's
absolutely
the
the
next
next
step.
step.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I know we can go discuss pomegranate, but in the Gupshup, now we'll move to the next segment
Sure.
because today we are talking about Priya Srinivasan and how you've come here. So, Priya, you've also been a business journalist,
Yeah.
13 years from 1994 to 2006.
Yeah, that's right.
And so you worked with
Yeah.
Business Today, Business India, UTV, Financial Express.
Yeah.
And basically, the period from 94 to 2006 were also the days of the economic liberalization, the reforms. So you've actually seen those periods of high growth and the deregulation and the FDI flows and the FBI flows.
Yeah.
What so- did So while you were doing those stories in those days, did you have that kind of a heady feeling that what
Yes.
you're seeing is, something that history is being created?
Yeah. Yes.
What are your memories of those days?
Sure, absolutely. Because honestly, had no intention of getting into business journalism. I came in thinking I'd be a political journalist. I had zero interest in business journalism. But I started applying, and the jobs were only in business journalism. So I was like, what's going on here? I mean, it doesn't. Anyway, so that was the only job available. So I took up this thing and I said, what do I know about business? I remember my grandfather saying that, what business journalism? What do you know about business? So I said, I don't know. I mean, and even my bosses know that I know nothing about business journalism, but whatever, I learn on the job. So, because of exactly what you said, Gayatri, because business was picking up, there was a huge upswing. There were massive investments. Everything was on an upswing. Most sectors were on an upswing. And business journalism was the hour of the, I mean, whatever the need of the hour. So, and therefore, and that was the time UTV, which was then run out of a basement in Worli, I think we were about 30 of us in that basement, all of us reporting to Ronnie Screwvala. And it was, and every day was just euphoric because it was just like, the first non-fiction show of UTV, and it was called India Business Week, and it aired on Star Plus. And we were the team that were going to produce this show. And it aired every Sunday, and you never believe this, but okay, we were a team of, like, I don't know what, some six of us putting this show together. I mean, timings, people now talk about timings and things. I don't even want to go there. I mean, there have been times when I worked till 4 a.m. and then gone back to office at 10 a.m. because we just lost track, of everything.
Editing. I remember it
Everything.
happened to me while editing. You
Yeah,
literally
it's editing. Basically, it's editing. It's just a crazy situation. And and you had to do everything. You had to shoot the story, you had to produce it, you had to do the subtitles for it, you had to do the voiceover for it. So you were doing everything. So there was no question of going home and all. And this was the time when, okay, we started producing India Business Week. And believe it or not, Gayatri, so at that time uplink was not yet legal in India. So you
Yeah.
didn't have these broadcast vans and things. There was no uplink possibility. Every Friday night, one of us would take the tape and go to Hong Kong.
And go to
Hong Kong.
Hong Kong. Oh, wow. Air India flight
I mean, there was no other way to take this tape because Star TV was being uplinked from Hong Kong,
from
right?
Hong Kong. Yes.
Yeah. How do you get the master across over there? So and so we became very popular because everyone knew that we needed a Hong Kong courier on Friday nights. So we were the most popular team. People would be lining up, with like, who's going on, and every Friday. So it's like a solid number of people who can go. So they're turning up saying, my passport is ready. Can I go? Shall I go? Whatever. This was the sort of lunacy it was. And but yeah, so it was all on an upswing. Definitely, business journalism was. This was the first business. There was another one, India Business Report on BBC, and India Business Week was on Star Plus, and these were the first business shows in India.
So I'll tell you what was happening in Delhi. In those days, I used to be with Aaj Tak, and Aaj Tak was this half an hour program on DD Metro. So
Right,
there, the tape had to be ready, and the broadcast time was 10 p.m. So I mean, you had to finish shooting, finish editing, have the tape ready 9:30, and run to the Doordarshan office, which wasn't very far because this is Connaught Place Competent House.
right.
But Hong Kong is next level.
Hong
No
Kong.
wonder everyone wanted to be a business journalist.
Friday night Hong Kong. Goodness.
Friday
And
night Hong Kong, yeah. But then you also did some stories which went against this the euphoria that everyone was experiencing, and you called out some.
so that was an ongoing thing, right? I mean, once you're a journalist, there will always be something that someone has not liked in a story, something that someone found, uncomfortable, or why did you portray me like that, or whatever it is. But what really happened was the sectors that I would say, I felt that, where it was possible to watch an entire sector kind of take root and watch the cycle was the internet space. Because and by that time I was covering IT in particular, and the whole .com thing began, and at that point it was again, just investors pouring money into these .coms. Nobody knew what these things were, what were they doing, what are these eyeballs, what do you mean by value, I mean, why are they being valued at these crazy amounts when when you can just see that they forget about profits, they don't make revenues also. So how is this working, so initially it was all rah 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 rah, right? But then the questions started, then it became like, what's going on here, I mean, how come 500 crore and things, and like I was saying, I'm talking of 1996, 97, yeah, 2000, 500
2000.
crore. Yeah, I'm not talking about 2021 ka 500 crore, na? That time ka. So it's just like, how can you have a valuation like that for something which is, got a bunch of people watching it? So it just was, and so yes, those stories started, yes, we did start questioning those kind of things. We did start calling out investors and companies that where the valuations were making no sense, where it really seemed like it was snowballing into something, really, really sort of inconceivable. And there was definitely a lot of action, and people turning around and saying that, I mean, obviously accusing the journalist of not understanding what is happening and things. And well, in retrospect, the whole thing blew over. I mean, it just erupted, right? Of course, there are .coms today, very successful, fantastic ones. We live off, I mean, they're part of our lives. But what about those hundreds of them that got these huge valuations, and where are they today, anyway, that's a chapter. Another thing that came up right after that was the whole outsourcing boom, you see, because that became a very big deal. All the massive multinationals were starting to outsource processes to India. So you had these call center agents, you had whatever it is, being answered in India, whatever it is being solved in India. Why? Because labor is cheap. So these companies actually, what also started happening is that they of course had fantastic facilities, very plush facilities, very, very, great cafeterias, maybe gyms, maybe fabulous loos, I don't know what. So the point is that, but what was really happening on the other side was that kids were dropping out of college. Kids barely out of 12th and things were joining these
Call
situations.
centers.
These were 17, 18, 19-year-olds. They were staying up all night and sleeping for part of the day, and then waking up in the evening, and at a time when, nobody else was around to socialize with, so they're all socializing with one another. So we started hearing a lot of stories, about 3 a.m., the whole party scene started taking off, and all the attendant things that go with it. Also, women started talking about the entire menstrual cycle going for a toss, because day had become night, night had become day, and their biological clocks were going completely off gear. So there was a big sociological fallout to this whole thing. And no, these companies didn't like talking about it at all. So at one point, when I asked a company that, look at what's happening to the kids, and I was told that you're talking to us as if we are, sweatshop labor out of Bangladesh. So I said, hey, wait a minute. Is that the only thing you're trying to say or not? That you're not sweatshop labor out of Bangladesh because you have a really plush, massive, facility. I'm not saying you're sweatshop labor out of Bangladesh, but can you not see what is happening here? So there were massive, again, with the whole outsourcing thing also, there were questions about the whole cheap labor in India business. Yes, labor may be cheap, but really, at what cost and at what social cost is it coming?
And lots of your stories were about the city you love the most, Mumbai.
City, 50th year in this city now. So yeah,
And then, even when the great sale happened for the 600 acres of land in central Mumbai,
yeah.
you covered that story.
Yes, lots of
Broke your heart to see what happened.
well, the thing is that that was a big story then. It was a really big story because it unfolded like all these .com and whatever, opened, blew out, blew over, crashed in front of our faces. And, there's a bunch of us following it, wondering what just happened here, because at one point it was, I remember right through my childhood and youth, it was untouched land. It was 600 hectares of untouched land in central Bombay. Nothing ever happened there. It was just you could see broken chimneys, you could see overgrowth, and this is all that you saw, and you knew. And this was the status for a good 15 years. Nobody touched that thing, and then started, slowly the changes, and what can be done with this land, etc., etc. Of course, it was like stirring a hornet's nest because there had been lakhs and lakhs of unpaid workers. There was the whole history of Datta Samant and the mill workers strike,
Workers' strike.
and yeah, and that whole legacy, and people holding on to the idea that at some point they would be at least paid their benefits to get off, whatever. I mean, they were unions, and they did, they were powerful unions, and there were lots of workers who did not get their dues.
Dues.
And so in the light of all this, naturally one thought that, all right, there is this, the way this is going to pan out is that there's going to be a plan for it. Well, there was a plan for it. And it was all handed over. Charles Correa had done this whole plan. It was a fantastic integrated plan for central Bombay, and it was all with the government. Everything was fine, and then the government one fine day suddenly changed the whole formula that was put out. There was a one third, one third, one third formula, where the land was to be split into three parts, to go to, I think, settling. Part of it was to the mill owners, part of it was to the BMC, and part of it was, if I'm not mistaken, for the workers' settlements. But I could be wrong on that. I don't know what the third part was for. But it was certainly not for the mill owners. Right. So anyway, so what happened is that they said it's going to be a one third formula, and this is how it is, and that's what Charles Correa based his entire development plan on. And suddenly one night, something is passed, something is put out in the Gazette or wherever, and the whole clause has been changed to, it's one third of non-built up area only. Okay. Now, non-built up area is small in these mills because these are massive built up areas. So the minute it came down to that, people got nothing out of it. Everything went to the mill owners. The city got nothing. The BMC got nothing. And a PIL
Not
was,
very plush residential complexes.
that came much later. That came much later. This is still early 2005. I mean, the law was passed earlier, but in early 2005, the PIL was filed, and this whole thing was questioned. Um, Even after the PIL was filed, it was overruled, and I remember meeting Charles Correa at that point because I went to interview him for this, and he just sat down and he said, "I don't want to talk anymore." He said, I won't talk. I'm going to stop talking completely. So dejected, so
So
broken,
dejected.
so dejected, because he and a team of architects had put, the government just let them along. They, had this whole plan going and whatnot. And finally, I mean, it was, I
Yeah.
don't want to sound controversial because you said this is not a controversial show, but it was daylight robbery.
It's also a show to reflect and ponder over, yeah, and think about, what's happened.
Yeah.
So is this also the same time when you started getting, I mean, then you got out of journalism in
Yeah.
2006.
Six. Yeah.
So why did you exit what was such an exciting field? And, after 12, 13 years as a business journalist, you were definitely at the top of your profession.
Yeah, so I think that, for me, it was like a skill that had become, for me personally speaking, I'm not speaking about journalism per se, or, whatever. I mean, it's a hugely, a profession I respect vastly, people I respect vastly. And just for me, that I think it was getting a bit formulaic. Like, I felt like, if I know how to crack a cover story. I know how to crack a lead story. I know how to crack a front page story. So I just felt, what am I learning now? I think that's when it became fairly clear. And then the whole pomegranate thing
And
started
then that's when Sia
becoming.
came with the perfect picture. So you have a problem with perfection, Priya, if I may say so.
Maybe, maybe,
You
maybe.
learned how to crack it, and then it wasn't challenging
I
enough.
think you're absolutely right. I think, Gayatri, somewhere you hit the nail on the head with that. Once it's cracked, I'm not in, I'm off it.
Which brings me
It's,
now to the third aspect of your life these days, yoga. So you've been practicing Iyengar yoga, you've been a practitioner for 14 years,
that's right.
and now you are a teaching assistant.
Yeah,
After 14 years of studentship at Iyengar Yoga Shray, Mumbai,
that's right.
you are now training to teach. So
Yeah.
how did this journey with yoga start?
No, no, quite by chance. I mean, it
Like,
was just I wanted to learn yoga, and I, sort of started calling. I kept hearing about Iyengar yoga and how it is the yoga that I should join and everything. So I tried making calls to Iyengar teachers. I was on a 6 month wait list everywhere. I was on a 6 month wait list at Yogashray and with all the main Iyengar teachers. I didn't know what to do. And then I met a friend one afternoon near Yogashray for lunch, and I so happened to be near Yogashray. And she said that, I've joined this institute and I go here. And I said, how did you get in? So she said, just walk with me to that front door right now and just sign up. So I went there and they said, we have one Monday, Thursday batch. Are you interested in taking it? So I said, I'll take whatever you have here. And I just took that batch, and to date, my batch remains the Monday, Thursday batch. I know students who go there and they change
it's
teachers.
14 years now.
Yeah, it's the same teacher.
So what motivates you to keep at it, given that people, change classes, drop classes at the top of hat, including yours truly? So how do you remain
Well,
motivated?
motivated, I don't know. I think that once it takes root, it takes on a life of its own. I don't think that, initially you just got to keep at it, keep at it, keep at it. And then at some point, it takes on its own sort of, yeah.
So Iyengar yoga, so there is this, I don't know, popular misconception that yoga deals more with the mind and not so much with the body.
No, so body, mind, and breath are a triad. So it's nothing works without the other. They're all interlinked. So body is very much part of that equation, a huge part of it. I'd like to ask you an interesting question. Actually, I can ask the audience members also. Tell me something. When you want to, you can just type it up in the chat box if they may. If you want to express, something that you're going through, say you're very, very nervous, right? How would you say it in English? If you had to say it in common parlance, that people use all the time, how would you say it? You're really nervous. What happens to you? What is that phrase?
I'm losing it.
No, the phrases which have to do with, can anybody, anyone here? I'm
Yeah.
stressed, stressed. What
Stressed,
about,
stressed.
what happens to your body? What things that involve organs in your body? A
Your
clue?
mind.
Butterflies in my
Agitated.
stomach. Yes, Rani Chitra got it. I have butterflies in my stomach. I can't breathe properly. Absolutely. Go on, guys. Exactly. I can't breathe properly. I have palpitations. Absolutely. And where are these happening? Are they where are these happening? In
I
body
am
part.
I am
Okay.
agitated.
I'm agitated. Can you give me a body part for this? Give me a body part.
Fluttering and heartbeats jumping up.
Breath is short, stomach
Right.
is knotted,
Yes.
lungs hard, and
All the sensations in the body.
the sensations in the body. What about my throat ran dry?
Yes. True.
Yeah. So what are these? What is a
Muscles
throat?
become weak. Muscles, you feel the hands are loosening up or something. Body loosening
Exactly.
up.
It's in language, is what I'm trying to say. It's in the language. It's butterflies in your stomach. It's your throat that runs dry. It's your stomach that gets knotted. It's your breathless with anxiety. Breath is to do with the lungs. What are these? These are body parts. So, how are you imagining that you can deal with the mind without dealing with the body? I rest my case, Gayatri.
QED. On that note, I have more questions for you, but it's nearly six, and I know you have a little performance, or maybe
Performance
there's
demonstration.
a treat for the viewers of Gupshup with Gayatri. We're going to have a. Oh, I had to ask you one special question. Sorry, Priya. One last question before I request you to show us some of your asanas.
Sure.
This is a Galaxy question of the day from
Okay.
a Galaxy viewer. Yeah. What is your leadership mantra, Priya? Every day you're making so many decisions. What is your leadership mantra?
I think, oh wow, okay. It entirely has to do with my team. I believe that if you are your team, you're only as good as your team. That's the bottom line. You're not doing anything on your own. You're not going to achieve anything on your own. You're not going anywhere on your own. It's all of it's. and therefore how much you've inspired them, how much they can do, how much they're motivated, whatever. I think you are your team. You're only as good as your team is really my thing.
I hope Virat Kohli is also listening. And now we will go leadership mantra. Priya, may I now request you to show some of the asanas you've been practicing for the last 14 years?
14 years wala since I'll show you a glimpse of what I mean, yeah, certainly. Can
You
you?
want to tell us more about it? This is Iyengar yoga with the props and what are
Yeah. So I'd rather show it, and then
yeah.
perhaps if anyone has a question, I could take that later. I would have to request that I go off camera for about a minute.
Yeah. So host, can you just pin yeah, you can
I'll
maybe
I'll I'll just I'll just stop video.
yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So this is I hope you've enjoyed listening to Priya, and please send us your comments and any more queries you have for Priya. There were many more questions on yoga, but once we'll see how much time we have after Priya's performance, if I may call it. So stay tuned. This is a new segment we are adding in. Gupshup with Gayatri, old world conversations, new age technology. Yes, great inspiration. Absolutely. Yoga really changes us from within. Lots of comments in the chat box. Any more queries for Priya? There'll be some music also with the asanas. Yeah. There is a comment from Nishu Khanna. I identify with the okay, told the teacher. Yeah. We have another parent writing in to say that she told the art teacher, let my child draw his way, teach him to color. Let his don't let his imagination run wild. Aarti Singh says kids need to explore, not create perfection. What about classes for adults? Yes.
Oh yeah, we do classes for adults as well. So
Can we have you here? Yeah.
I think shall I just pin?
Yeah. You can put your camera back on and pin.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's
Oh,
right.
that was quick.
Okay, just give me a second, please.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
अथ पातञ्जलयोगसूत्रे समाधिपादः प्रथमः अथ योगानुशासनम् योगः चित्तवृत्तिनिरोधः तदा द्रष्टुः स्वरूपे अवस्थानं वृत्तिसारूप्यम् इतरत्र वृत्तयः पञ्चतयः क्लिष्टाः प्रमाण विपर्यय विकल्प निद्रा स्मृतयः प्रत्यक्ष अनुमान आगमाः प्रमाणानि विपर्ययो मिथ्याज्ञानम् अतद्रूपप्रतिष्ठम् शब्दज्ञानानुपाती वस्तुशून्यो विकल्पः अभावप्रत्ययालम्बना तमोवृत्तिर्निद्रा अनुभूतविषय असम्प्रमोषः स्मृतिः अभ्यासवैराग्याभ्यां तन्निरोधः तत्र स्थितौ यत्नोऽभ्यासः स तु दीर्घकाल नैरन्तर्य सत्कार आदर आसेवितो दृढभूमिः दृष्टानुश्रविक विषयवितृष्णस्य वशीकारसंज्ञा वैराग्यम् तत्परं पुरुषख्यातेः गुणवैतृष्ण्यम् वितर्क विचार आनन्द अस्मितारूप अनुगमात् सम्प्रज्ञातः विरामप्रत्यय अभ्यासपूर्वः संस्कारशेषः अन्यः भवप्रत्ययो विदेहप्रकृतिलयानां श्रद्धा वीर्य स्मृति समाधिप्रज्ञा पूर्वक इतरेषां तीव्रसंवेगानाम् आसन्नः मृदु मध्य अधिमात्रत्वात् ततोऽपि विशेषः ईश्वरप्रणिधानाद्वा क्लेश कर्म विपाक आशयैः अपरामृष्टः पुरुषविशेष ईश्वरः तत्र निरतिशयं सर्वज्ञबीजम् स एष पूर्वेषामपि गुरुः कालेनानवच्छेदात् तस्य वाचकः प्रणवः तज्जपः तदर्थभावनम् ततः प्रत्यक्चेतनाधिगमः अपि अन्तरायाभावश्च व्याधि स्त्यान संशय प्रमाद आलस्य अविरत.
Wow. I'm speechless, Priya. You can read the comments. Beautiful combination of body, breath, and mind. I leave you to read the comments.
Okay, so you were asking me before about the props. So I specifically chose the ropes today because it is very specific to Iyengar yoga. Um, it's
Someone asked if ropes have always been associated with Iyengar yoga.
yes, yes.
It's not a new prop.
No, it was one of Guruji's genius inventions actually. This was just very basic. What I showed you on the ropes, it goes into several levels, and it's therefore I chose it because props are associated with Iyengar yoga, and then people are not very clear what those props do.
Hmm.
So I thought I'd demonstrate the ropes.
Wow. There was a question about your yoga teacher. It's Aisha.
My
Yeah.
yes, my guru is Aisha Devi, and her guru is Yogacharya BK Iyengar, and she has learnt with Guruji for over 40 years. And all my 14 years of training have been with Aisha Devi, in addition to other teachers as well, and more recently, Jawahar Mangera sir, but for 14 years with Aisha Devi. What are
Thank
some of the other props that I used? You want to see the props? uh,
you.
brick, wooden brick, slanting plank. Actually, there are tons. Okay, this computer is placed on one of the props. It's called the Halasan box. Bolsters, blankets. These are some of the absolutely basic props.
Yeah.
There are a whole bunch of props.
Wow. So I think Priya, thank you so much
It was a pleasure.
for I'm such a for sharing your thoughts, for opening yourselves to us, and for that mesmerizing performance, if I may call it.
And that's really kind of you to say. That's mesmerizing because any Iyengar yoga students here will tell you it's very basic rope work.
That's you. Always modest, always low key, always
You can
inspirational.
ask Nandita, she's right here. She's an Iyengar yoga student. She'll tell you how basic it is. I'm not joking, really.
Okay, yeah. But seriously, thank you so much. And thank you to all my audience members. Thank you for joining in. I hope you've enjoyed this session of Gupshup with Gayatri. We will be back soon with another episode. Till then, goodbye. Continue watching Gupshup with Gayatri, old world conversations with new age technology.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
everyone. And thank you, Gayatri, for even thinking of me for this.
We can stop recording now.